Hello and welcome. This is podcast number 79 in the listening room. My name is Suzanne Goulet, and what you're about to listen to is an interview I recently had with the lovely Sara Troy of Self-Discovery Radio, found on the internet at selfdiscoveryradio.com and specifically on the channel Choose Positive Living. This is part 1. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to The Listening Room, a spirituality podcast brought to you by SpiritSourceConnect.com. My name is Suzanne Goulet, and in each episode I'll be speaking to you about new spirituality and how you can use it to improve your daily life. By offering you insights, tools, and techniques, you'll become more aware of your connection to a higher power and begin to accelerate your path to a life of greater joy, ease, and flow. Enjoy.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living. I am your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is Suzanne Goulet. We're going to be talking about spirit-source connection. We hear so much about spirit and source and divine connection and divine intellect and cosmos, and a lot of people I think are just kind of confused. What is it? How do we connect to it? How do we recognize it? How do we know when we're connected? And I think sometimes we think too much and we forget how to feel. In order to know if you're connected to spirit, it needs to come from your heart and your soul and your spirit itself. And sometimes the mind just gets in the way. So how do we still the mind? How do we focus it in to listening to the other beautiful divine intellects that are within us? We're going to be discussing that today and finding out how we can do that. Suzanne also does these beautiful things twice a month called live global energetic downloads. And you can download these to help you in kind of a meditative transformation and kind of sink into what that source is. It's like a channel turner. She focuses you on the right frequency so that you can tune in. She has some free courses that we're going to be offering at the end of the show. She has been doing this for a very, very long time, and so she has many programs: Course in Miracles, Therapeutic Gemstones, Living Essential Oils, which are beautiful, and many, many other things. So we'll cover all of that, but most importantly, your connection to Source. What is it? How do you do it? And how do you get connected? So welcome to the show, Suzanne.
Hello. Thank you, Sarah, for that beautiful introduction. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. People are very, very confused, aren't they? There's still this confusion that spirituality means that you have abstained from anything in life and that basically you're a hippie living off the land. People don't realize it's kind of a science. It's a measure of energy, and that we all are energy creatures living in that flow and that frequency of life. And that connection to the universe is something we already have. But people just, as rather like the old radio channel. When you had the turning knob, it was easy to find those little channels in between. Now everything's digital. It seems to just go to one specific channel. And I think people have lost their way of connecting. So how do people connect to Source? But more importantly, what is Source?
Well, that's a wonderful question, Sarah, and I'd be really happy to contribute to helping your listeners understand how really important it is to kind of maintain. It's just like, we brush our teeth a couple of times a day, right? Why do we do that? Because we want to take care of them. We use them every day. We want to have them for our whole lives. And in the same way, we want to be paying attention to our spiritual connection as well. In some ways, we're never without the spiritual connection. If we weren't connected to Source, we would simply disappear. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't be here anymore. But it is literally impossible to not be connected to Source. You already are. So there's a simple kind of lifting of the veil to see what Source wants to bring you, what Source has to give to you, and it is always there, flowing forward, giving to you, wanting to give it to you, offering you guidance, there is never a moment or even a split second that Source isn't within you and expressing without you. And when you become more aware and can start listening and acting on your impulses, this is when your life begins to really, really open up. So I want to start in answering your questions. You had two questions, is how do people connect to Source and what is Source? And so let me start answering those questions by just explaining that our lives can unfold much more smoothly and easily when we really are aware of this connection and actually use this connection. You know, it was Christ who said, you can be in this world, but not of it. And that means that we kind of just step back a little bit from our hyper-focused attention on everything that is around us and just float just slightly above it and observe what is coming into our realm and what is the message that it's bringing, how to respond, and how to act in the way that our guidance, our inner guidance, is directing us to. And so this isn't something that you automatically learn. I mean, some people have the instincts for it, but it's just like riding a bike. The first time you get on, you're really wobbly. You don't know if you're doing it right. You need training wheels. But little by little, you practice and you practice, and you might have a guide with you to kind of make sure you don't fall off the rails. But then once you're riding that bike, you can really zoom around and you have more freedom, and it can take you wonderful places. And even if you get off the bike 10 years later, if you get on that bike, you haven't forgotten a thing about how to ride, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's in our memory.
Exactly. So first, let me tackle the most challenging question, is what is Source? Now, I'm using Source, and a lot of people are using the word Source, or sometimes they use the word the universe in replacement for the word God, simply because the word God has kind of started to instill a lot of fear in people, or even anger or resentment in people, because they are not happy with perhaps the way things are in the world, and so they blame God. They're not happy with the way things are in their lives, and so they blame God. And so this anger and resentment can kind of keep people from developing a closer relationship. If you're angry at someone, it's kind of hard to be close to them, right?
Yes.
So when we think about Source, we think about the original place of light that brings form and manifests all things in the universe. And the scientists have even proven this. The quantum physicists have gone in and looked into quantum fields and seen that everything is really just a matter of energy and is emanating all from the same source. So they're also looking at, the metaphysicians are looking at, Source really is love, and that love is the glue that holds all things together.
Yes.
So when we decide we want to stay connected to Source, or we want to connect with Source, or we want to nourish and fulfill a greater connection with Source, what we're saying is we want to get closer to the very source of who we really are. And who we really are is pure love. Now, this might be a bit of a leap for some people, but if you remember when you were a child, this was much simpler for you to understand. When you were first beginning to come into consciousness about the world and what it was, you loved everyone around you. You loved everything around you. And your parents and your siblings or whoever was around you all saw you as kind of a bundle of joy and love, really. So we came into this world actually as love, to spread love. And along the way, we kind of get trained into the ways of the world, and we have to make our way in the world, and we end up falling into the ways that human beings have set up to be in the world, which is highly competitive and not about love at all sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So my work offers a way for us to get back to that source. And so there are practices that you can instill in your daily life to get back there. And the first one that I recommend for people is going to be meditation. Some people have been practicing meditation for decades, and so for them, it's like riding that bicycle. It has become easy. And for some, they've tried, and they have a difficult time with it, and they just simply abandon it and don't go back. But I'm going to encourage everyone to make greater efforts, because what you can achieve during 15 minutes of sitting quietly and not just going through all the thoughts that are swimming in your head, but in focusing in the now moment and being able to actually receive from Source can literally change your life overnight. So there's more about that in my course, which people will be able to download for free at the end of our call. So the second thing that I highly recommend people to do, which is something I have kept throughout my entire life, every single day to this day, is journaling. And in your journaling, what you can do is connect to the higher place of your own self. This isn't the kind of journaling where you are writing what you did today, although sometimes that can be involved, but you can actually bring into consciousness some things that are going on in your subconscious, some things that you might be denying. And you get to write these things all out. And at the same time, while you're there, you get to pose questions and ask. You can ask anything that you want, and you can receive answers. And those answers come from what I like to call spirit, or for some of us who are familiar with Christianity, it's referred to as Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is kind of the intermediary between Source or God and ourselves. It's the all-communicator. And that all-communicator, Holy Spirit, is with all of us. And it can answer your questions for you. And if you're ever confused about your answers, you can ask, is this coming from a place of love, or is this coming from a place of fear? And if it's fear, it's usually not Holy Spirit talking to you. It's usually your own fear. And we need to alleviate that fear in order to hear the voice of love. Does that make sense to you?
100%. I mean, it's again kind of that channeling, isn't it? As I said, sometimes our own thoughts, which are programming. It's conditioning. You were talking about a child only knows love. We only know love for that child. I call them divas, an acronym for dreamers, inspirers, visionaries, and aspirers. And you watch a child in dreamlike state, being inspired by life around it, seeing a vision of what they want to be and aspiring to be that, even in make-believe. And then systematically it kind of gets beaten out of them in their lives, and they lose that connection to that spirit, to that dream, to that inspiration, and kind of follow an expectation. And I think this is a lot of the reason why people disconnect from Source is, as you said, they're always connected, but they disconnect in the way of understanding their connection and using it, because they are living by somebody else's code rather than by the divine or the Source's code.
Exactly. And it's a return to who we really are. Mm-hmm. It's going to take some real risk-taking to act on your inner impulses. But even you, Sara, you probably received some inner impulses to start this radio show, right?
Oh, yes, of course.
And you didn't know how it was going to turn out, did you?
Oh, the first show was catastrophic. It was a Monty Python skit. Everything went wrong. I pressed every wrong button there was.
And did it stop you?
No. No. Nearly 5 years later and 1,800 shows, no.
Yeah, so this is a perfect example also for your listeners. So what was the impulse that was coming to you from before, well, before you had your first show that was catastrophic? What was happening inside of you? What was the calling? What were you calling out for?
Purpose. For me, I have to live by purpose. Otherwise, what's the point of living? And that's always been my
Yes.
underlying thing. And I suffer a lot from depression, and that's a lot to do when I'm not connected properly. And I was at a crossroads of desperately needing a purpose, but not being able to go down the road I had once been. I knew I had to go down another road, but I had no idea what it was. But I needed a purpose. And I wrote something on depression, and somebody else picked it up, went to my site and said, I think you should have your own radio show on my channel. And I was with her for 13 months before forming my own station here, which my good friend Bill Mackey set up for me. And, now 3 years later, over 1,600 shows, I get to interview people like you who are an inspiration that becomes an invitation for other people to take their own journey.
Yes, and that's such a beautiful story, and it's also such a beautiful example. And what I am so passionate about as well is that each one of us has our own purpose to fulfill. And Spirit is calling for us to fulfill that purpose. Mm-hmm. And the further away we are from that purpose, the more depressed we are, the sadder we are, the more hopelessness we feel. But when we're back in alignment and taking that step to get back into alignment, has those daily practices, number one. And number two, it's going to require taking some risks and being prepared to fall off of that bicycle and get back up again. Because in some way, not everyone can fulfill their purpose if they're too afraid. You kind of have to have a lot of courage. You have to have those huevos, if you know what I mean. So you need to be able to move forward no matter what is happening in your life. And what gives you the fuel, what gives you the power, is that strong desire like you had, Sara, which was, I want to do something fulfilling. I want to have purpose. I have got to have purpose in my life. Otherwise, what is the point? And I believe so many people practically everyone who is listening.
Oh, hello? Dropped you? Are you there? Okay, well, the internet gods there decided to interrupt for a moment, but we are back. So, Suzanne, what were you saying?
Yes, I'm in Hawaii, and sometimes if the wind blows in the wrong direction, our internet connection will get interrupted, but we're working on fixing that. And the other thing I learned the other day was sometimes when I'm highly energy activated, there's a lot of energy that flows through me, and I don't even realize it sometimes. And someone pointed out that electronics can totally go wacky. And so let's just put the ghosts in the machine on guard to protect us for the rest of our show, shall we?
Yes, exactly. Can we have this bubble around us, please, that gives a little protection? Yes.
Here I am in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and thank God we have this technology to talk to each other. You're up in Canada, I'm out here, and we're speaking to people all over the world. And so for that, we are grateful, and thanks to Source for our blessings. So I want to continue where I left off, which was speaking directly to your audience. And anyone who is listening to you, Sara, is someone who really wants to have purpose in their lives. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And if you're on a spiritual path, it's not because you have chosen it. It's because the spiritual path has chosen you. It means that it is calling you forward. It is encouraging you forward. And there's a line in A Course in Miracles that, Christ is the author of that, and he says, would I not give you the means to fulfill your purpose? Meaning whatever is your purpose, you will be provided for. Yes. You will be given the connections. You will be given the steps to take. And so the hardest part really is getting on that bicycle. The hardest part is saying yes there's another line that says, all are called, but few respond. So I am encouraging all of your listeners to respond to the call. And you might say, well, Suzanne, what do you mean by that? Meaning there's something in your life that is calling for you to take action on. And for some of you, there is something in your life that is calling for you to get rid of or to let go of. And very often these two things happen simultaneously. And let me explain why. If you're about to get on a new path and start fulfilling your purpose, which is going to bring you unbelievable joy, eternal joy, you'll be flying high. I mean, I'm sure Sara can reiterate how she feels when she's having a successful show, how happy she can feel. At the end of her day, she can go to bed and saying, wow, we've had a great day, right?
Yes, most certainly.
And so there are so many rewards, and these are the rewards that heaven promises. But quite often, before you can have room in your life to be fulfilling your purpose, there are things that you have to get rid of. There are things that you have to let go of. Sara, do you have any examples in your life of things that you needed to let go of to make room for your true purpose?
Oh, well, the biggest one was self-doubt. I came from a world that, you can't do it, you're not able. I had to find that courage and that strength within me to believe I can. Kind of jump in the deep end and learn to swim while drowning. But managing to stay calm enough to lay on the water and go, okay, I can do this. And be willing to fail, be willing to fall, but every time you get back up, you're a little bit stronger and you're a little bit wiser, and then you fall less often.
Yes, and I want to contribute to that, because what you just spoke about, which is self-doubt, is what I see women mostly suffering from the most. It's what I see holding themselves back. It's what I see is going through their minds. Well, I'm not good enough yet, or I can't do that, or they're looking out to people who, like Oprah, and saying, well, I'm not as good as Oprah. Well, you're not supposed to be Oprah. Yeah. Oprah is Oprah. You are you, and you have your purpose. And there are people out there who are waiting for your gifts. And they can't receive your gifts. They can't know what they don't know until you are sharing your gifts. And the second part of that,
you're no different to Oprah. The only difference is that she tapped into an energy source that brought the spotlight onto her so she could reach more people. But when we're looking at the gifts of what we are, we're all gifted. We've all got those beautiful aptitudes when we let them come. And we can't look at other people, they're more than us. They're just more accomplished than us because they've had more focus on them and they've reached more people.
Yes. And it's like, does one snowflake compare itself to the other snowflake? And it's all another way of being, of feeling guilty or of not recognizing your self-worth. And so let me assist in alleviating a little bit of that as well. There is more to your gifts than just belong to you. And what I mean by that is that Spirit will fuel your gifts when you start to extend them. It's like there's another line in the Course that says, like, an idea when extended to another becomes stronger. Mm-hmm. An idea never leaves its source. So if I have an apple and I give it to you, I don't have that apple anymore. But we're talking about ideas, and I extend to you an idea of self-confidence, for instance. That idea is strengthened in me, and it's given to you as a point of light, and you will perhaps then speak to somebody else about it, and in this way it grows and it grows and it grows. And the same goes for anyone who has any gifts. They know they have gifts, And when you extend them, they become stronger. And so then you extend them again the next day, and it's even stronger. It's cumulative. So the more that you do, the more that you go, you just keep doing the work, keep doing the work, keep doing the work. And don't focus on what the results are. Just focus on getting really good at what your gifts are. Become the master of your own gifts. Mm-hmm. So for you, Sara, your gift is being able to connect with the right people, find them, get them on the show, interview them, and have them speak of their gifts so that those ideas are extended through you to all the people that are listening. And that's tremendous.
I mean, you know, the beautiful gift we have of this internet, whether it works or not, is the fact that we can now do this around the world. There are no boundaries, and with energy, there is no boundary. So it's become a beautiful tool, hasn't it, for us to really be able to expand upon this like no other time in history.
Exactly. And the gifts of light are ever extending. So the third step to creating a stronger connection with Source really is doing your life's work, fulfilling your purpose, fulfilling your calling, doing your calling. That is creating an extremely strong connection with Source, because as you're extending your gifts, you also receive more from Source, and you receive more guidance on how to fine-tune what you're expressing. So if you're a painter and you make a canvas and you make a painting, perhaps the second painting that you do, you're going to receive a different kind of impulse from Source on what to do different on the second painting, and so on with the third and the fourth and the fifth. Now, back to you as an example, Sara, do you think that the way that you conduct your shows today is a little bit different than how you did it the first time?
Yes, it is actually. Ava a lot more confident, but also I have been the pupil. You know, I've learnt something from everybody I've interviewed. You know, I've been the sponge absorbing it, so it's made me a wholer person, and also probably more discerning. You know, because of really knowing the authenticity of somebody because of this. So, you know, it's just do and you will become, right? And so it's just doing. I want a couple of things I want to hit on. You know, one of the stigmas people have is that we've placed so much importance on a little piece of paper defining you, diploma, degrees, the this, the that. And when we're talking about source energy, you know, God doesn't hand out a piece of paper. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to validate your information. So if you are source driven, in that beautiful divine intellect of knowingness, something you need to know at the time you need to know it, there is no piece of paper around that. That's where faith and trust comes in. Trust the knowledge you're being given. If you feel it throughout your core, you know it to be true, and there's no need for validation anywhere along the line.
Exactly, because you're going to feel it in your core.
Yeah.
That's exactly right there. And that's how your core becomes fed by Source, becomes brighter and brighter, and your mind becomes clearer and clearer. You can kind of see immediately the things in your life that no longer suit you, no longer are worthy of your time, no longer are worthy of your attention. And those things served you during the time that you were involved with them or you were spending time with them. You know, I've let go of so many things, with television, I've let go of alcohol, I've let go of spending time, too much social time with just acquaintances. You know, I've got this powerful work that's flowing through me, and time becomes my most valuable resource where I want to create as much as I can, and it's super exciting as well. So the other thing I was going to add to that, you were talking about validation and papers and certificates and this and that God doesn't require those. And we are often acquiring those for our own personal sense of validation. And it's okay if you want to get certified in being able to be a life coach, for instance, so that you feel better qualified for how to help people who are in an emotional crisis, for instance. There's real ways that you can do that just by learning the skills. But the other thing I wanted to add was that we're creating a whole new world right now. We're creating a whole new way of being and interacting, and we're creating greater harmony with each other. So there's a lot of professions that are being born right now that are brand new. I mean, if you just thought 5 years ago, even, had you even heard of so many different ways of being a coach, for instance? Had you heard of so many different tools like gemstones of essential oils, or had you heard of distance energy healing, or any of these things, and as the new generations are coming in, they take these new ideas that we are giving birth to, they grab onto what is exciting to them, and they expand upon it even more. So now there's like a huge birth of online learning that's going on, which I find super exciting because anyone with an internet connection can download courses and learn things they didn't know before. We can tap into radio shows such as this. So just remember, if you think that your calling or your purpose is a little bit outside the box, then go for it. Usually, that's a little bit of the hurdle or the challenge that Spirit is calling you forward from, because it needs you to assist in creating the new world.
Yes.
And the new world is born out of the old one, but it has very little to do with it. It has very little to do with the old world. So it is out of the box. It is a bit radical.
I want to hit a point on this. Is that I've spoken to a few people that have been given some beautiful divine gifts. Abilities that, they came into, but they're still very guarded on it. They won't tell them. So, they're a little bit scared to admit too much. I don't want to say that because, there are the judgmentals out there. And a lot of the time I kind of refer to them as newbies. They've been given a beautiful gift, but they haven't learnt yet to let go. Because when you let go of that persecution or that judgment from others, you truly immerse yourself in that gift that you were given, in that divine source. But there's still a lot of people that are so fearful even of the gift. Suddenly they're overwhelmed with something. And I know this is going to sound strange, but they're still a little bit too humanoid. You know what I mean? They haven't embraced that beautiful human spirit yet. What would you say to people who have just come into something, but they're a little overwhelmed or even fearful of it?
That's an excellent question, Sarah, and I'm really glad you asked it. For so many of us, when we were little children, let's just say anywhere between the ages of 5 and 12, just think back to your childhood. And whenever you wanted to do something you were really excited about, it's kind of like a little bit creative, you might have gotten scolded. You might have been told, don't do that. You might have been said, quiet down or be quiet or don't act that way. And so this is the actual age range that your subconscious mind is being formed. So unfortunately, we have built into us these kind of barriers that will stop us. And it's subconscious. It's not real. It's left over. And so this is why I really push people to start journaling and start meditating, because all of those subconscious patterns become dissolved. When you're connected with Source and you're connected with love, when you're sitting there in your meditation in a deep, deep place, and you've quieted your mind and you can just receive love from Source, you're actually transforming those brainwave patterns that are always stopping you. So when those get dissolved, you feel this self-confidence, like you don't care what people think. You just know that what you have, you want to give. You want to practice giving it away. If you're new at your craft, let's say you just learned how to read astrological charts, and you're super excited about this. For the first several months, go ahead and get clients and give your work away. And this is the best way to improve your self-confidence. And then when you start getting feedback with people, sometimes people say, well, I didn't really get anything out of this. And so then you need to improve. And then if you give another chart away, then people will say, wow, thank you so much. I understand now why I relate to my mother this way or why I relate to my husband this way. Because it will be all there in the chart. And so you've really helped them improve their lives. And this is what we're all doing for each other. So in order to get past your own self of self-judgment, number one, realize that there are things from the time that you were 5 and 12 years old that caused you to lose some self-confidence, okay? All of that can be healed. I'm a healer, a distance healer, and this is the main area that I help people with is erasing and transforming those subconscious blocks. Number 2, get connected with Source through the 3 ways I've outlined: meditation, journaling, and doing your life's work. And like I said, I have a free course for people to download so they can get more. If this is resonating with them, they can get more after our interview. And number 3, you have to start not caring what people think. Like, it makes sense that if you're going to share things with people that have been your friends, they may not want to see you grow and change. They like you exactly like you are, right? But the ones who really want the best for you are so going to be your biggest cheerleader. They're going to be like, you go, girl. You tell me how it goes. I'm here to support you no matter what you want to do. Because those are the people you want to keep around you. The ones who like to see you happy and growing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's again, it's all vibrational. Like there are some people who are simply not ready to grow, or they're too afraid to grow. They like you the way you are because A, you keep everybody at the status quo, or B, if you grow, that means the emphasis is on them having to do something, and they don't want to. Could be lazy, could not be ready, or whatever. But I remember, some people deciding to drop me because I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to be there for you. I'm having to put that energy upon myself because I'm depleted. And the only things I'm going to address are that are uplifting and positive. And I immediately had 2 people drop me. And it was, good friends, lifelong friends. And later I realized that they were piranhas. They were people that would come in and dump their woes and energy on me, deplete me, and then off they go. Their tank is full, right? And I didn't realize what it was doing to me. And they didn't want to see me grow because they would lose that source of energy. And when I removed myself away from that and I started seeing that energy going into me instead of into them, then I could actually see the picture clearer. So we can't be afraid to walk away from loved ones or friends, because until we've walked away and look back and really assess the situation, we really don't know what level it was all at.
Exactly. And what you're describing is one of the first difficult steps that kind of happen on a spiritual path. It's one of those things, where I was asking, what are you going to have to let go of to make room for what's coming now into your life, which is your life purpose? And in the beginning, when you start sharing difficult times with your friends, you will attract friends who will also want to share their difficult times. It's like that old saying, misery loves company, right? So it's called commiserating. You're commiserating together. And for a while, this can kind of feel okay because you're not alone anymore and you're commiserating together. But at a certain point, you need to decide together, okay, enough is enough. What are we going to do about this now? And usually one of the 2 will be having the attitude and the other one prefers to commiserate and stay in that hole. And you need to ask yourself, do I want to stay in the hole or do I want to get out of the hole? And you, my dear, decided, I want out of the hole. It doesn't feel good here.
Yeah.
It's miserable here.
Yeah.
I don't like miserable.
No.
I prefer happy. So you had to step out of the hole, and in stepping out of the hole, you left someone behind. But that someone will find another partner to commiserate with. I guarantee you.
Oh, yes.
And you're free. And the commiserator will stay there, and there's no judgment. They will stay there until they've had enough, until it doesn't serve them anymore. I encourage all commiserators to open their eyes, because there's an amazing, beautiful, heavenly world out there that is here and for you to enjoy now, not in the future.
Yes.
There is no other place. Heaven is here. And there is no other time. Heaven is now. This also comes from A Course in Miracles.
This is Suzanne Goulet, and I want to thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave me a comment on the blog section of my website at spiritsourceconnect.com. And while you're there, feel free to sign up for my newsletter, and you'll receive a free audio inspirational gift. Thank you.